It started with a favor. Melanie called one Thursday around lunchtime, flustered and apologetic, asking if I could swing by her office and fix a leak in the break room sink. Their usual handyman was out, and the property manager was getting impatient. I didn't have much going on that afternoon and figured it was a quick fix, so I told her I'd come by. I threw on a clean shirt, loaded my tools into the truck, and drove downtown. I remember thinking I hadn't seen her office since the holiday party the year before, and it might be nice to show up as her husband, not just the guy who fixed pipes. When I arrived, the receptionist buzzed me in with a smile, and Melanie was already in the hallway, dressed in a navy blue blouse and heels she never wore around me. Her makeup was perfect, her perfume strong enough to notice even from a few feet away. She seemed surprised I'd come so quickly, almost caught off guard, but she waved me toward the break room and said she'd be in meetings the rest of the afternoon. I got to work under the sink, half-focused, trying to remember where the shutoff valves usually were in these old buildings, thinking maybe I'd surprise her with lunch later. About 20 minutes in, I needed a replacement part and realized I'd left it in the truck. As I walked back through the corridor, I passed a glass-walled conference room. That's when I saw her, Melanie, leaning over a man in a charcoal suit, laughing, her hand on his shoulder. He turned slightly, and even from behind the glass, I could read their body language. Too close. Too familiar. Her smile was different. Private. Like a joke I wasn't part of. I paused for just a moment. Not long enough to be noticed, but long enough for the chill to settle in my chest. I pushed the thought away. Maybe they were just friends. Coworkers. She worked in a client-facing job. It wasn't unusual for her to be charming. But the rest of the afternoon, I couldn't shake the image. The light touch, the tilt of her head, the way she stood too close, like gravity was pulling her toward him. After I fixed the leak, I left without saying goodbye. She texted me, "Thanks again," with a heart emoji, like everything was fine. But everything didn't feel fine. I didn't sleep much that night. My head replayed every small thing I'd dismissed over the past year. Over the next few days, I noticed everything. Her tone shifted. Her answers were shorter. She started working late more often, saying she was catching up or had last-minute showings. She never used to dress up for those, but now she wore lipstick and heels. On Saturday, I offered to drive her to an event she mentioned. She declined. Said she needed alone time. That was when I knew. Not suspected. Knew. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. So I watched. I started small. I adjusted my schedule, came home early without notice, and paid attention. Twice I saw her car parked at the edge of the park near downtown, same time, different days. She claimed she was out showing properties. But I never saw flyers in her purse anymore. No paperwork on the kitchen table. One day, I waited. Parked across the street with the windows down, engine off. At 5:12 p.m., she walked to her car from behind the community center, alone. But not far behind her was the man from the office. He walked fast, got into his car, and didn't look around. She didn't see me. By week 2, it was undeniable. Her car would be at hotels, out-of-the-way spots she never mentioned, for hours at a time. I followed her once, far enough not to be seen, close enough to watch. She pulled into a boutique hotel's underground lot. He was already there, waiting beside his car. She hugged him. It wasn't a polite hug. It wasn't work-related. My vision tunneled, hands clenched on the wheel, but I didn't get out. Not yet. I let them go inside. Then I drove away fast, numb, filled with a silence I couldn't explain. That night, she came home late, glowing. She smelled like expensive cologne, not mine, and said some vague thing about networking drinks running long. I asked nothing. I ate dinner with her like it was any other Tuesday, but something in me had hardened. I looked at her across the table, her fork lifting risotto to her mouth, her eyes darting to her phone every few minutes. She had no idea I knew. No idea I'd watched her cross a line you can't walk back from. She thought she was still in control, but that control was already mine. I started taking things out of the house. Quietly. My tools first, then valuables, documents, the things that mattered. I moved into a small storage unit under my business name. She didn't notice. She was too wrapped up in whatever fantasy she thought she was living. I worked on autopilot, still fixing pipes and checking job sites by day, but inside, something darker was brewing. A storm with a name. Hers. What I was planning wasn't revenge in the cinematic sense. There were no threats. No public meltdowns. No shouting. Just one final, quiet collapse she wouldn't see coming. I wanted her to wake up one day and realize the world she thought she'd built on deceit had quietly been pulled out from under her feet. That's how you make someone feel what they've done, not with rage, but with ruin. I timed everything. I booked a week away, told her it was for a last-minute emergency job in Arizona. She barely blinked, kissed me on the cheek, and told me to drive safe. That was the moment I knew I was already a stranger to her. She was more in love with a lie than the man who built her life from the ground up. As I packed the truck and pulled out of the driveway, I wasn't heading to Arizona. I drove to the edge of the city, checked into a quiet cabin, and waited. I knew she'd use my absence. 2 days in, a neighbor called me. He thought I was still home. Said there was a strange car parked in my driveway late at night. I didn't react. I thanked him, ended the call, and sat with that information. Another piece falling exactly where I thought it would. I waited 3 more days. By the end of the week, I returned. She didn't hear me pull in. I walked into the house, saw his shoes by the door. I walked upstairs, calm as a winter sky. The bedroom door was closed. Behind it, I heard the muffled sound of music and her voice. I didn't kick the door down. I didn't scream. I walked back downstairs, sat at the table, and waited. When she finally walked into the kitchen wrapped in a robe, her eyes widened. The blood drained from her face. I looked at her and said only one thing. "You should have known better." Then I stood, walked past her, and out the door for the last time. I didn't answer her calls. Not that night. Not the next day. Not ever again. I had already signed the papers. The storage unit held every piece of my life I wanted to keep. The house, the car, the joint accounts, everything was separated, redirected, untangled. All I needed was silence, and I had it in abundance. She sent long texts, frantic messages begging me to come home, to talk, to give her a chance. But I had nothing left to offer. I let her stew in uncertainty for a week. Then, on a Monday morning, I had the divorce papers delivered to her office. I didn't want a reaction. I wanted control. She walked into work thinking it was just another day of cover-up and charm. She opened that envelope and realized she was already halfway out of the life she took for granted. Her assistant told a mutual friend that Melanie locked herself in her office for an hour. I pictured her there, crumbling behind the frosted glass, and I felt nothing. Rumors started spreading about her, about him, about me. I didn't confirm or deny any of them. I didn't speak a word. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't need help. It arrives, eventually, and it settles into people's bones whether they're ready or not. She showed up once at my office. My crew froze when she walked in. She looked like someone who'd aged 10 years in a month. Pale, thin, eyes frantic. I stepped out, met her outside by the work vans. She reached for my hand. I didn't let her touch me. She said she was sorry. She said she missed me. She said things could go back. I told her quietly, with nothing but certainty in my voice, "It's already over." Then I turned, walked back inside, and left her standing there, alone, in front of strangers who now knew exactly who she was.